This is D. Hunter and my lovely wife Patricia bringing you another movie review. We're going to be reviewing Star Trek Nemesis, the 10th movie in the Star Trek franchise, the 4th, the Next Generation movie, and what a lot of people call the franchise killer. Star Trek Nemesis gets a lot of hate, and I think it's a little bit underrated. Yeah, it has a lot of flaws, a lot of problems, but personally I think it's much better than Star Trek Insurrection. I despise Star Trek Insurrection, as you guys probably know if you watched the previous video. Star Trek Nemesis was directed by a guy named Stuart Bard or something like that.
Yeah,
from what I heard, he was not a Star Trek fan. He didn't know anything about Star Trek. They got him, I don't know, based off some other successful movie he had made. And I heard he kept getting the characters wrong, and the actors kept trying to correct him, and he wouldn't listen to them, and all this sort of stuff. I mean, the movie had a lot of forced, unnecessary action in it. They tried to make it like an action movie. It had a very Star Wars feel to it, which is funny because the reboot movie, which is the next one, has a very heavy Star Wars feel to it. But I think this one sort of failed at what it was going for. This movie came out in 2002. Star Trek Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Next Generation were all off the air at this point. We had Star Trek Enterprise going on, which was a lot less popular, and then we had this movie, which was also a lot less popular. Just saying. It takes place in 2379, so it's, I don't know, 20 years before Picard. Almost the same amount of time in real time, because Picard came out a couple years ago, and that's about 20 years later. This movie uses the Romulans as the main villain, which Star Trek has never done before, which is interesting considering the Romulans are such a main power in the Star Trek universe. We have pretty much the Federation, the Klingons were the two most main known, and then the Romulans after that. And they've almost never even been in the movies.
You don't know much about them.
In Star Trek, 5, there was a Romulan ambassador on that planet, Nimbus 3, and then in Star Trek Generations, the Romulans, the Klingons stole some sort of technology from the Romulans, and that's it. We finally have them as the main villains. And this movie has Tom Hardy. I don't know if it's his first movie, but it's one of his most, first popular movies he was in. And it actually killed his career as well. He was not seen for 5 to 8 years after this. Dark Knight Rises is the first time I can think of he was in. I'm sure he was in plenty of movies between then, but this movie is not well received, and it pretty much ended the franchise. They were planning to make another one right afterwards, but this one did so poorly they kind of backed off, and Enterprise ended. This was the last movie. Stopped making TV shows for the first time in 20 plus years. Stopped making movies for the first time in 30 plus years. And the franchise just sort of got on halt for a very long time. It was more than 10 years, I believe. No, I can't tell you what year the Star Trek reboot came off the top of my head, but it was better for 10 years, if not 10 years. I almost want to say it was 2008, but I feel like that may be wrong. It doesn't really matter. People call this the franchise killer. There are things I like about this movie and things I don't like about this movie. But like I said, Insurrection, I just can't stand the whole sort of idea of it. I almost find offensive. In front of you here, we have an energy drink. This is Romulan Ale. Star Trek, and then we have some Romulan lettering down here. It's actually pretty clever, pretty well done. Not sure how well you guys can see that, but bam, there it is. I actually got this as a Christmas gift, kind of a joke, and I saved it. I wanted to drink it, but I thought, you know what? Let's wait for Star Trek Nemesis. That's heavily Romulan based. They actually mention Romulan ale. They're at Romulus. They have Romulan food and drink, etc. So it says it is Blue Raspberry Nebula. Well, there's no such thing as a blue raspberry, but I've had many blue raspberry stuff over the years, so let's see.
But you've had a nebula.
You know what? It's about exactly what I would expect it to taste like. It's kind of good. I like it. Try it. It's very candy-ish, but it tastes exactly what I would expect it to taste like, being labeled blue raspberry.
Yeah.
It tastes almost like, I don't know, blue raspberry warhead or something like that. It's not bad, actually. It tastes literally what I would expect it to taste like. So, I personally am a huge Star Trek fan, as you guys know. I prefer the Next Generation era the most. Next Generation Voyager Deep Space Nine. I love the technology. I love the way the different governments are, the way the ships look, etc. Things about this movie that I like, the way it looks. Enterprise is sleek, even the little shuttles, everything looks pretty good. The special effects hold up nicely. The ship battles look very good, considering this movie is 22 years old at this point. The story itself, the motivations, leaves a lot to be desired. The acting it's good, it's okay. I mean, Jean-Luc Picard is fine, Brent Spiner's fine, but once again, it's a Picard and Data show. The other ones don't really do much of anything. It's really just those two.
But no stupid comedy.
Oh, there actually is stupid comedy.
Well, yes.
And we'll get to that. Star Trek Generations, mainly Picard, Data. Data got motion ship, Picard is suffering from the loss of his family as a leader. Star Trek First Contact, once again, mainly Picard and Data. Picard with the Borg Queen, his experiences with Borg, Data getting captured by the Borg. I mean, characters did do stuff in those two films. It wasn't just them, but they're the main two. Star Trek Insurrection.
Why was Q never in any of them?
It'd be a little... Q is sort of the main original villain in, Star Trek Next Generation.
But he had recurring roles.
Yeah, it would be very fitting for him to be in a film, but I think it'd be a little weird for mainstream audiences that perhaps don't know what a Q is. They can continue him and be like, what is this omnipotent thing? Is this stupid? It's just like a god, instead of using sort of more real type stuff. But Q is an epitome of almost like what the original show would do, to have these godlike creatures, blah, 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 that sort of stuff. I think it would be a little bit much for non-Star Trek fans to go in and watch and to kind of be like, eh. It would be very fitting. Yes. Acting, it's fine. I mean, and once again, Insurrection, part Picard, and
You're talking
Data
more
show.
About Insurrection.
No, but it's the Picard Data show as well. So all four of these movies, they're the main two characters. And you know what? Whatever, that's fine. They don't give the other ones that much to do in this movie, though. Worf, Geordi, Beverly especially, do nothing. Riker and Deanna kind of have a little extra thing going on where they're the telepathic stuff, the wedding, and him leaving to go to the Titan, all that sort of stuff. The movie's not good. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's good, but I think Insurrection is much worse. It's just me. What did you think, Insurrection or Nemesis?
Is worse?
Yeah, which one do you think is worse?
I like Tom Hardy.
So once again, we both say Insurrection is bad. I think it sucks, and Insurrection is probably my second least favorite Star Trek film after The Final Frontier, which is Star Trek V, that William Shatner made. That one sucks so bad. So, Star Trek Nemesis. So the movie opens up on Romulus, which is the headquarters for the Romulan Empire. We have a meeting of all the sort of higher-ups, the Romulan Senate, Praetor, senators, whatever, and one of them leaves. They're trying to keep mentioning we should join Shinzon of Remus, blah, 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 and you don't really know what they're talking about or what's going on. At one point, one of the Romulans leaves, and someone left a device there. Device makes some sort of green, glowy stuff go up, and then a bunch of powder comes down. Then they all sort of just disintegrate and die. And that sets up the sort of, not the tone of the movie, but the beginning of the movie. I guess Shinzon of Remus, which is played by Tom Hardy, the main antagonist of the movie, killed the entire Romulan Senate and made his move to take over. And he sort of commands the Remans, which is a different species. We have Romulus, the main homeworld, and Remus, which is nearby. And the Remans are from Remus. Romulans, I guess, kind of have them like slaves. And in some ways it's a retcon, because you've never heard of this species before.
Isn't Remus their moon?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, Romulus and Remus are like brothers, and...
Yeah, but so is Vulcans. Vulcans and
Romulans
are...
I don't know if they're like brothers in real life, but I'm saying like in like Greek mythology, they're like brothers or whatever. Yeah. But they sort of retcon things. You've never heard of the Remans, but it's fine. It doesn't contradict anything. Apparently they're the slave race. They use them to mine dilithium on Reman or whatever. But basically, Shinzon has now wiped out the Romulan government or Senate, and he can take over. Now, Romulans hate Remans, so it's very odd having a Reman take over the Romulan Empire. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, he's not a Reman, he's a human, but it gets really weird. Then we cut to what I think is on Earth. I'm not 100% sure, it doesn't really tell you, but my guess is that's on Earth. When we have everyone in their dress uniforms, they're having a wedding between Riker and Deanna Troi.
About time.
Yeah, they were lovers before the show, which was like 20 years ago at this point, where they were together, and they always sort of like hinted they cared about each other, blah, 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 throughout the show. The movies never did anything, but Insurrection started their relationship back up, and now they're getting married. Cool. And you can also hear them mentioning that Riker's leaving to go to the Titan, which is a different ship. He's finally accepted his own command after he's denied it, I don't know, at least 3 times on the Next Generation show. He's bringing his new wife, Deanna Troi, with him. And kind of cool, in the cartoon show Lord Dex, which takes place after this, you see him on the Titan and Captain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of satisfying to finally see it after all these years.
But at the wedding,
Yeah, at the wedding we have all these Easter eggs, which is fun. I mean, it's mainly just two people. Number one, we have Guinan in the background. She doesn't say anything. She just smiles a couple times. And that's really cool because she was not a main character in Next Generation, but she was a recurring character and important to Picard and all those people. But you have Will Wheaton as Wesley Crusher sitting there in the corner, and nothing's explained to why. Because last time we saw Wesley Crusher, which in the universe, I don't know, would have been like 6 or 8 years ago, something like that. He left with some being called the Traveler, resigned his command, and went to travel the galaxy.
So maybe it is Q. Pretending to be.
We don't know what happened off screen, so I guess he traveled with the Traveler, then he came back, and then rejoined Starfleet. I mean, that's what this sort of implies, because he's in the dress uniform, he's in Starfleet uniform, not in civilian attire. It's just kind of dumb, but it's at the same time cool to have him as... He was a main cast member for at least a few years of the Next Generation, have him back, and it's fitting. He would want to be there for their wedding, of course, but if he's traveling the galaxy, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. And you know what? It doesn't need to make sense. Then you also have Worf back with the crew, and last we saw him, it was in the Deep Space Nine finale, where he went to be the ambassador for Kronos with Martok as the Chancellor.
Yes.
And of course, now he's back in his Starfleet uniform. They don't even try to mention it.
No.
I heard that there was, I don't know, behind the scenes or deleted scene or something where Worf mentions, you know, politics wasn't for me, I'm not a diplomat, and he went back to being chief security of the Enterprise. Would have been nice if they had a throwaway line, because in Insurrection they did the thing where they sort of just jokingly didn't explain it, and it's like, now they actually literally just didn't explain it. A throwaway line would have been nice. Not a huge deal. And then, in the background, Worf, who's an exemplary Starfleet officer, is like hung over, and he's like, Romulan ale should be illegal, and they're like, it is, and he's like, oh, like, that is not at all what he wouldn't, I guess he partied so hard at the bachelor party last night that he got hung over and everyone else was fine. Klingons can handle alcohol more than anybody else, as we've seen in the show. Yeah. So that's just stupid.
That makes me a Klingon.
It's the director or the writers or whatever just doing stuff out of character like they do a lot in the show. Then, you know, they go to the ship, and the ship looks fantastic, real sleek shot of it, you know, flying past the camera, and randomly Worf's like, we have a positronic, we detect a positronic signature, and it's like, in a different system, the third planet, it's like...
Yeah, near the neutral zone.
I just feel like that would be, I don't know, not that easy to pick up, but... I mean, it's some very unusual positronic system. They mentioned the only one is Data, and of course we have Lore, who's not in this movie in any way, shape, or form. But they're not a common thing, so I guess it flagged their attention somehow. But it's just the fact that it's so far away, it just seemed a little forced and convenient. And that's what it is.
Yes.
But
on their way to Beta Z.
Yeah, they were going to go to Beta Z for the wedding, which, of course, the Beta Z tradition is not to wear clothing and go to the wedding naked.
Yes.
And they mention that, and then, of course, they try to be funny, and Picard's like, all right, I'll be in the gym. It's like, I mean, it's like a day away. Like, what are you going to do?
It would have been funny if Loxana had...
No, she should have been there. I don't know why she's not in that movie, honestly.
She wasn't dead yet.
No, not at all.
Okay.
She was even alive in the Star Trek when the reboot came out, I believe. She voiced the computer in that one. I think she died sometime after that. I'd have to look it up, but she's definitely still alive at this point. It's very odd that they didn't have her in there.
Right?
I mean, she was at Beta Z. They were going to have a second wedding.
You would think that they, you know, I don't know, may call her or something like that. Let her know that they're going to be late.
But it actually makes sense that she's not there. To tell you the truth, they're having two weddings. You know, one sort of the human Riker side, and then the Beta Z side.
Yeah.
So they go to this planet to find the positronic system, and you know, cool, whatever. Like, just get past that. It's not that big a deal. But then this part is just dumb. The whole part. So they go to this planet, and Picard's like, Riker's like, you shouldn't. You know, Captain can't go. Shut up. I want to try the Argo, and it's some sort of dune buggy desert. AT off-road thing. So dumb considering the technology they're in. They're just in this like buggy thing, and of course they drive super fast and they're shooting everything. It's just dumb. Then of course they get all the B4 parts, which is the robot they find later. They find out his designation is B4. Of course he was made before Data. He's a more primitive model. And they're fighting some people on there that are also in dune buggies going on, and it's this sort of actiony scene, and Picard's just driving super fast.
And they look like the sand people!
Yeah, it's just...
It's the desert!
It's just dumb. That whole part didn't need to be in there. They could have found B4 some other way. That part, they're just trying to be cool, and it's just dumb. The shuttle looks good, I'll give it that. If nothing else, I have no problem with the design, the way it looks, the effects there. But they drive the dude like off a cliff and it goes like right into the back of the shuttle. And they have a little thing that like catches it when it gets in there. It's like they would not be planning on them doing that sort of stuff.
No.
So that was just stupid. And that's the kind of stuff that this movie does. It is what it is, but, you know, Star Trek movies, sometimes they try too hard, and this one's definitely trying too hard at the action-y and being cool, and it fails. Insurrection tried too hard on being funny, and it also failed, and it's like, we had Generations, which was really good, then First Contact, which was even better, and then Insurrection, which was much worse than this, which was pretty much as bad. So they assembled B4, they try to talk to him, and he's just stupid, he's primitive, he doesn't understand anything. He's like, why does a guy have a furry face? Because Riker's beard is just dumb. But they're showing that he's primitive and he's not capable of Data. Data convinces them to download his memories into him, thinking he could, I don't know, get him working better. They do that, it fails, he's no different than he was before. Meanwhile, Picard's ready room, he's sitting there having tea, I would assume, Earl Grey, I don't really remember them saying that. And they have incoming...
Did.
Okay, good.
Yes.
That's what it should be. Incoming message from Starfleet Command. And it comes up, and I love Easter eggs like this in the franchise, because in the universe continuity, Voyager got home, I don't know, a year ago or something, and it's Admiral Janeway.
How did she become Admiral?
Because they promoted her for saving the whole crew and keeping them alive and having all this data on them. What do you mean, how would she
Well, then why is Picard not
He doesn't want to be
Admiral?
Admiral. And he becomes Admiral later, you know this. But... take Generations, he meets Kirk. Kirk's like, do not let them promote you. Do not let them do anything to take you off the bridge of the ship. He listened to him and delayed being Admiral for a while. He actually becomes Admiral probably not too long after this, and I don't really know the timeline, but...
They have a lot of Admirals.
They have a lot of Admirals and Vice Admirals and Fleet Admirals and Double Admirals and whatever. But Admiral Janeway contacts him, and it's cool. She's in the gray uniform. You never actually have seen Kate Mulgrew, Janeway in the gray uniform. And it's nice to know they're back, and she got promoted, and they're all living happily ever after. And it's cool. She orders them to go to Romulus. Apparently, the new Praetor wants to talk. It's a diplomatic mission. And, get this, he's a Riemann. None of them understand it, but this is their chance to find out about peace. So... they go to Romulus, and it says they are outside in orbit for 17 hours, and they haven't heard any communication whatsoever. 17 hours?
Why would you stay there that
17
long?
hours? You're telling me they're just sitting there, they don't have no one on the whole planet's answering them?
Right?
But of course, since someone would be doing that on purpose, it's
It's
an
like knocking on the
intimidation
door
thing.
and no one's there. Okay,
And
how many
then-
times do you knock?
His giant ship, the Scimitar, decloaks, and Worf's like, raise shields. Worf's like, no. So he's like scanning, he's like, 27 disruptor rays, 16 photon, like a million, trillion, billion weapons, and they're just like, oh my god. So yeah, it's a warship, like one of the most impressive warships you could ever have heard of in the Star Trek universe. Contacts him, but it's a Riemann talking to them, and this one is his viceroy. I don't remember his name in the movie, but he's played by Ron Perlman, and you can't really tell, but if you know it, it's kind of cool. He was hot shit at the time, early 2000s.
Hellboy.
Yeah, and I don't know, whatever his name is in Alien Resurrection, all around that same sort of time. So they beam over, and it's the entire crew, minus Beverly. She has the least to do of the main 7 of this movie.
She had to look after Wesley.
And they're in a dark room, and they meet Shinzon of Remus. He's sort of in the back, and he's not... you don't see him very good.
Very dramatic.
But they do scan him, and he lets them. He says, go ahead and scan me. Don't hide it. They're hiding it so poorly. He's literally just holding it down. It's like, they can see the flashing lights. But they're like, oh, you're human. They very confused. And he explains their story, how he raised in the mines or whatever, and his Reman's brothers. But somehow, a human is leading a Reman revolt and is now in charge of the entire Romulan empire. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, you think Romulan have billions and billions of Romulans. I mean, they have systems and planets and fleets. Like, how does he exactly get in charge? Unless there's way more Remans than it's possible. But
they only live on half the planet.
Exactly, and the Romulans have like a whole system of like probably conquered worlds and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't really explore that.
No, and the truth is, they've always kept the Romulans sort of a mystery in the universe. Like, even though they've been allies before, so that's what I also find a little interesting is they were allies last we saw them. They were fighting against the Dominion with the Klingons, and and then it looks like that didn't really go anywhere after that. They went back to sort of rough relationship. Because they were like so nervous about going to Romulus and that sort of stuff. Just mildly interesting. Just before they leave the Scimitar, He cuts his hand, gives him the knife. That way they can scan the blood. On the Enterprise, they find out he's a clone of Picard. He goes to have dinner with him the next day, and he's mentioning peace and all that stuff, and it sounds too good to be true. It's exactly what Picard wants to hear. Mm-hmm. Picard is just sort of looking at him. He knows... He explains he's a clone that the Romulans made of him, and at one point, different Romulan leadership shifted, and someone else didn't want to start a war, so they got rid of the clone. They sent him to the Reman mines with the intent to kill him, and the Reman sort of looked out, protected him, and he said, "And there I found my Reman brothers," and eventually led a revolt, and they escaped, and I don't know, got powerful somehow, and ended up taking over the whole Romulan Empire, which, like I said, is a little much, but whatever. This plot conveniences. It's his clone that looks like Picard. I guess he's been bald his whole life, which is contradicts the TV show when you showed a younger Picard who had hair, but whatever. And I don't mean when he was a kid, I mean when they showed him as an ensign getting the heart thing cut up by the Nazis. It doesn't really matter. It's a small detail. I'm not that big a deal.
But he was cloned to...
He was cloned to replace him and have an agent in Starfleet, which doesn't make sense. It's exactly what the Romulans would do.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Not bad.
Liking all that sugar, huh?
Not bad. So you don't really know why Shinzon is so interested in Picard. They lured him to Romulus. After they leave, his Viceroy's kind of like, "Hurry, we must do this." You see him a couple times, like, in pain. His Viceroy's touching him. He has some weird telepathic abilities. It doesn't really explain that. I'm sure some deleted scenes probably did.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like the other Remans do. Like, he's a special one. Like, he has this weird ability. And maybe it's like, I don't know, 1 out of every 100 Remans have it, but nothing tells you anything about that.
No.
Whatever, so the Enterprise is just floating on top of the planet, and then they kidnap Picard. They beam Picard onto them, and they find out that Shinzon is dying because... Well, they actually explain that. Beverly looks at his blood, and they find out he was set to get activated at a certain time, and then he'll age really fast to get Picard's age, and they can use it to replace him. And since that gene was never activated, he's sort of falling apart. And he needs like Picard's blood for a transfusion or something. Whatever. Just they just kill Picard, and he can save his life doing that.
Yeah.
So they steal Picard over there, and meanwhile on the ship, just before this, B4, which is the android they found, he had some sort of program. It was all a trap with Shinzon. They placed B4 there, lure him in there. Where they found this android similar to Data is ridiculous.
They did not explore that either.
Such a plot convenience. I mean, they could have used lore, and it would have been so much better if, like, perhaps they stole him somehow. I mean, they don't have to explain it, but it would have made much more sense than this extra positronic brain that you've never heard about.
Right.
Just shows up, plot convenience, and it could have been avoided with just a switch of the character. But whatever. So they have Picard over there, and B4 has given them the locations of all the Federation fleet or something like that. Picard's there, Shinzon's like, "We're going to do this," and, you know, Picard's just sitting there. Then, at one point, B4 comes up, and you find out, oh, it's Data. And Data has this single transporter thing, and he's like, "I'm going to beam you there." He's like, "No, we'll get out together." They go to a shuttle bay, and this really dumb scene that's very sort of Star Wars-esque. It's just, the way they're shooting, it just sounds like Star Wars. It doesn't even have the traditional Star Trek phaser noises. They get in a shuttle, they're flying all around the corridor, the inside of the scimitar, and it's dumb. And then finally they break out of the window. And this is actually cool. I thought this part was pretty cool. They're going to the Enterprise, and the Enterprise like, beam them up, and they beam the shuttle, which you don't see too often, and beam a whole shuttle. And the Shinzon scimitar thing is trying a tractor beam, like, goes right there and doesn't catch it. Then the Enterprise, bam, goes to warp, and they're on their way back to Starfleet. They mentioned they're trying to meet the rest of the fleet, and I'm like, yes, we're going to see a bunch of ships, it's going to be fights, it's going to be awesome. Of course, it doesn't quite go the way I wanted to. The scimitar, which can fire while cloaked, of course, is right behind them, and they get into some nebula. And I love the scene. They're in, like, the astrometics or whatever, and things start going staticky, and Data's like, "Oh, we're in the nebula, blah, blah, blah." And Picard's like, "Is that interrupting our connection to Starfleet?" And he's like, "Yes." And then, like, at the same moment they realize, he's like, "Evasive action," and then they start shooting on them. They don't have their shields up yet. It just give them a complete pummeling and pounding, and they're sort of, I mean, they're not adrift, but they're damaged pretty bad, and they're sitting there. Shinzon's meeting with him. He projects his hologram to his ready room, and they have this talk. "It's not too late, you can still do the right thing. Oh, it's too late, blah, blah, blah," all that sort of stuff, and it's, you know, that dumb, usual forced But then 2 Romulan warbirds decloak, and you're like, oh shit, we have the Scimitar here, the Enterprise is hurt, and then 2 warbirds, my god, is bad. And of course, they hail them and say, can we be of assistance? We consider this a matter of internal security. And that's pretty cool. So I guess the Romulans are not accepting Shinzon as their leader, and they go to fight. And it's actually a really cool scene. The effects are good. I love this part where the Enterprise just shoots all around it and finally sees where they are. They try to hit with photon torpedoes and fail miserably. Mm-hmm. The Scimitar completely obliterates the 2 Romulan vessels. They're adrift. The Enterprise has like 10% shields, almost nothing.
Yeah.
Shinzon's basically like, I'm coming for you right now. Mm-hmm. And then the Enterprise goes on a collision course, hits the Scimitar in this kind of cool scene.
Yeah.
At that point, Picard does a side-to-side transport on there so he can stop. They have this huge weapon, some sort of
theta radiation,
which they were going to go. Their whole plan was go to Earth, destroy Earth's population. And honestly, the motivations for that don't really make sense. I'm not sure why he hates Earth. He hates Picard.
Yeah,
I kind of get that. Maybe he wants to start a war between Romulans and the Federation because he hates the Romulans so much. I don't know. The whole time he's clearly not going for the Romulans' best interest. He's like disgusted by Romulans. They touch him. He hates them.
Yes,
and he's the one leading them. It's
a
little hard to accept.
Yeah.
So they have this weapon. I don't remember. It's some sort of genetic, weapon that's banned, outlawed, and it will destroy the entire population of Earth. But once the Scimitar is disabled, he plans to destroy at least the population of the Enterprise. Mm-hmm. The Picard beams over there. His plans to stop that. Data jumps out of the Enterprise through space, and it's a bit ridiculous.
Yes.
But whatever, he gets onto the Scimitar.
Like, shot out, like...
Yeah, but he's an android. He would calculate it perfectly. I'm kind of okay with that. They did have a pretty cool scene where the Enterprise bridge got, like, blown open and some of the people are going into space and they're holding on, and the force field finally comes up. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But Picard's there, of course, he's fighting Shinzon a fist fight. And then meanwhile, we have his Viceroy in the Enterprise in like a fist fight with Riker. I don't even know why he sent he sent him there to get Picard.
Yeah.
And Picard went there anyway.
Yeah.
Of course, it just kind of gives Riker something to do and be able to get revenge on him for sort of mind raping his wife earlier in the movie, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's just forced and kind of dumb, but, whatever.
Yeah.
Data gets over there to save Picard. Picard kills Shinzon, and he's like sitting there, and it's like one more minute until the Enterprise is ready. He basically accepts failure and defeat, and he's sitting there, and he just kind of gives up.
No, I think he's like seeing, like
it could be him.
He's like in shock or.
But I mean, it's done. He can't do anything at this point. He just sort of accepts like the Enterprise is dead. I'm dead. Everything's over. And then Data comes out of the blue, and it's fantastic. Data just puts that little Energizer one-person transport thing that he had from earlier. Picard's like, ugh, and he beams away. Then Data pulls phaser out, destroys the gun, destroys the Scimitar, and bam. Sacrifices himself in a very noble moment to save the entire Next Generation crew. Mm-hmm. He sort of, his whole goal is to become human, and I guess there's nothing more human in the Star Trek universe by doing a noble act of saving yourself to save your crew. It's sad, although it doesn't make me tear up at all. Like when Spock dies in Star Trek 2, I'm going to get watery eyes no matter what. This one doesn't have the same impact. And it's really sad that Data dies.
What did Spock do during all of that?
He was there. You saw before Penny at one point.
But they're like, ramming and...
the worst is I'm thinking of Picard or Riker and the Viceroy. They're like in this corridor. Like it's like the ship's going like nuts. They would be like so messed up.
They would have broken arms and legs and broken neck.
Then you go to Picard and them. They're having a little drink about toasting Data, and then it goes back to sort of Earth. The Earth system. The ship is being fixed, being repaired, and it's the Star Trek theme. And they're getting ready to go back out, and they're fixing the ships, going to refit. And he's talking to B4, explaining about Data. And B4's like, I don't understand. And then you hear him singing the song that Data was singing at the beginning of the film during the wedding called Blue Skies. And it's like, oh, well, there's a hope. Data's still alive. And I'm sure if they were going to do another movie, it would have been a huge part of it. Picard and the Data show again. Picard showing B4 how to become Data again, reminding him. And it would have been actually really probably annoying to watch all that.
Yes.
But that's what would have happened. Like, without a doubt, they totally set the seeds there. Yeah. But I believe Brent Spiner had asked to get killed off First Contact, and they said no. He has to get killed off. Insurrection, they said no.
He was done.
And they finally let him get killed off in this one. And then, of course, still comes back 20-some years later to reprise his role, and it's like, whatever. So, in conclusion, Star Trek Nemesis, It has a lot of bad stuff in it. The overall plot, like, I appreciate they took the Romulans as the main villains, but the whole Shinzon thing, his motivations, the fact that he was even able to take over it doesn't really make any sense at all. A human who's disgusted by Romulans, who they think is a Reman, which hates Romulans, is leading the Romulans, and they're all supporting him. That's preposterous considering how many billions of Romulans there would be out there. It's all convenience. It has dumb stuff in it, the forced action, the dune buggy part, Picard constantly firing in the hallways and getting the ship and flying through it. It's just, those parts are bad. The ship battle's fantastic. I'll give it that. That's one of the best ship battles in Next Generation, beyond the First Contact fleet thing was really good. They do get some of the character, the way they act wrong. And I mean, I haven't given that many examples, but it doesn't quite feel good. Like Insurrection at least sort of like felt like them, even though they were forcing too much dumb humor and blah, blah, blah. This one just felt a little off. And it's not that Star Trek was oversaturated. Everyone's like, oh, there was too much Star Trek there, and no, there was just too much mediocre or bad Star Trek. That was the problem, and this is a perfect example of mediocre or bad Star Trek. Same with Insurrection. Same with a lot of Enterprise. I like Enterprise, but it had a lot of mediocre and bland stuff going on, and they sort of just took for granted everyone's going to watch Star Trek. They're going to watch Star Trek. They're going to watch Star Trek. We're going to make another movie. We're going to make another show. We're going to make 7 seasons. No, eventually the plug got pulled because they were just content with mediocrity.
Filler.
And here we are now with a resurgence of Star Trek, and there's a bunch of different shows and that sort of stuff. Looking forward to starting Picard. We finally are pretty much at that point. This is the 10th Star Trek film. People say the odd ones are good, the evil ones are bad. No, the odd ones are bad, the evil ones are good. And this is like the exception. This is like the worst one. It's not the worst one. There are at least parts I enjoy about this movie. The Janeway cameo, the ship battles, the visuals are good. The acting's not horrible. I mean, like Picard or Patrick Stewart, they're making him be a little out of character, right? Too actiony, but he did fine with what he is. Him looking at Shinzon and that, sort of debate. Could I be this bad if it was me? Blah, blah, blah. It's okay. It's handled decently. If I were to rate this movie, I think I gave Insurrection a 5. Honestly, in retrospect, I kind of want to give this one a 5 and give Insurrection a 4. But there are parts, at least, that I enjoy about this. And they even reference the Dominion War and stuff. I appreciate that. But it's not a good movie. If I were to rank the Next Generation films, it would be Insurrection last, Nemesis next, then Generations, and then First Contact. First Contact is fantastic. How about you? How would you rate this movie?
Probably a 5.5, maybe?
Okay, fair enough.
I mean...
No, it's not horrible.
It's not bad. But it's not great.
I'd say there are parts of it that definitely are bad. And it would have been nice to know what would they have done next. I heard that they were maybe wanting to do like the next movie or whatever. It was going to be taking people from all the different shows and sort of having like a... And that would have been really cool. Probably would have messed it up, made it stupid, but the whole idea sounds cool. That's something they should have done. Since they can't even give Deep Space Nine or Voyager like even a TV movie, my gosh. At least they had Janeway cameo here, and just a shame. But there it is, Star Trek Nemesis, the 10th movie. I'd say it's in the lower half of Star Trek movies out there, that's for sure. But it's not my bottom one. It's not even my bottom 2 Star Trek movies out there. And I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's saying that there's just so much bad Star Trek out there. But I personally, what I mean by that is, I think it's underrated. I think it's shit on a little bit too much by fans. Just me. I'm not saying it's great. But
it has Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. But then
his cool ship battles.
Has his teeth. And that's a bad thing.
Tom Hardy, I really like him nowadays. He's very different than he was back then. A lot bigger, bulkier, and tougher. But, it was cool. He's young. These are his introduction into mainstream films. Yeah. So.
Anyway.
This is D. Hunter. And my lovely wife, Patricia. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say about the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional movie or action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. The next movie we're going to do is the Star Trek reboot. So, as always, live long and prosper, and we'll talk to you guys real soon.